Welcome to week 2 of our Start with Questions book club. Each week, we are reading a chapter from our book and getting together to share an excerpt we were excited to talk about with each other and a connection to our teaching or to our lives. This week's story is the second story in the book. What's Important to You is the title of this chapter. So, Sarah,
Yeah.
what was this story about and who was our theorist?
So we get a glimpse into the classroom of Benjamin, who is a STEAM lab educator at the elementary level. This particular story focuses on his work with a group of second graders, inviting them to explore in a programming language through creating a project that's all about them and things that they're interested in about themselves, what they want to share, what they want to say. And Benjamin's classroom is paired with the words and thinking of American radical educator John Holt, who wrote a series of 3 books in the late 60s into early 70s. And he really focused on sort of ideas about how traditional schooling is structured around the pursuit of the right answer and the way in which that really hampers students' growth, students' development, students' ideas about themselves. And Benjamin gives us these beautiful examples of ways in which making space for students to pursue their interests, to make something that's really about them, even though they can be unsure that that's really okay. And he tries to communicate to them that that is okay. The way in doing that both opens them up to sort of like what is possible within the programming language, but also really validates their sense of themselves as people with ideas and people with things to say.
Mm. So what was your excerpt?
So I was especially struck. I was especially struck by the sort of description, the initial description of John Holt's ideas.
Hmm.
Uh, In a trilogy of passionate, provocative books written between 1964 and 1972, How Children Fail, How Children Learn, and Freedom and Beyond, American educator John Holt attacked what he described as the destructive dominance of being right and wrong in school. His conviction was that when learning is framed as the pursuit of an answer someone else has determined, this produces so much anxiety about being right and fear of being wrong that no actual learning can occur. Holt argued that what enables students to get out of this unproductive bind is pursuing their own interests.
Huh.
And I I think that I was like sort of overcome with the depth of that, of the truth, both that that is a reflection of how so much of our educational system is structured, and also the truth of the way in which it gets in the way of the forms of meaningful learning that we want students to engage in. And
Hmm.
so Holt's calling that out, and the way in which, and I think sort of like the third part is then the way in which Benjamin shows us a way out of it by foregrounding projects that allow students to pursue what they're interested in and the learning that flows from those projects. And he notes, Benjamin has this observation sort of later in the essay where he just says like they discovered things and explored things because they were making this thing that they wanted to make. They figured out how to do all of this incredible stuff within the programming language. But I was sort of holding on to the weight of that bind about the pursuit of the right answer is so detrimental to the process of learning. And yet sort of our entire like education system is structured around the pursuit of the right answer.
Hmm.
And I've been thinking about, as someone working in a situation where I don't really am not able to do what Benjamin is doing. I see sort of the beauty of it and the value of it. I'm just not really able to do something that is analogous in that way. But I've been trying to think about what I can do so that that pursuit of the right answer doesn't seem like the goal and doesn't like infect and poison my interactions with the students, the way that they're interacting with the ideas and with the content. And I don't, I wish I had like wonderful ways to say that I got around it, but I think the things that I've been especially reflecting on is sort of like the language that I use with them, and
Hmm.
calling attention to, like, when I'm talking to a student about reading this story, I feel like the two things I've been trying to do is to say, like, I really want to know what you think. Like, if we've read a text together, we've got some sort of framing question. Like, I genuinely want to know what you think. Like, what did you notice? What meaning did it make of it? And I think all of the questions, which I feel like that's like part of another essay, but of what all
Yeah.
the questions that we have, like, fundamentally are about trying to help students make meaning of text. Like, that is really what it's about. But trying to say to them, like, really, really tell me what you think. Like, I want that to be the starting place. And then when I'm responding to what they think, I've been trying so hard not to say, like, "That's right," and instead to say, like, I've been trying to say, like, "I noticed that too." Like, if I want to validate what they said because I think it is, like, connected to whatever the kind of thinking I was hoping they would get to say, like, "I noticed that too. That also seemed really important to me." Try to say that in math as well, where again, there's, like, the right answer can feel very big. To say, like, that's what I got, or like, I actually got to a different place. Like, can we talk through, like, what you did and what I did? And then we'll, like, go from there. So and I'm not totally sure how much of a difference those things make, but I have been trying, like, to take the weight of it off of it, of, like, what you're supposed to do is produce this right answer, and I know what the right answer is, and you don't know what the right answer is, and, like, that's what's structuring our interaction. And instead it's like you engaging with this content that I'm excited to talk to you about. I'm another person here who, like, has ideas about it, and I do want to help you, like, as you develop your ideas, but to try to change that language, and to give them more space to say what they really think. I don't want you to just guess what I think or what I want you to say. I really want to know what you think, and then I'm gonna,
Hmm.
like, engage with you around it as just, like, another person thinking these things through.
So, not so long ago, I talked about this story with Mitch Resnick on
Yeah.
his Lifelong Kindergarten podcast. And this was one of the stories
Yeah.
that we talked about because I have been so compelled by John Holt's work more broadly, but also the ways in which he thinks about and talks about fear
Mhm.
and what an impact that has on us
Yeah.
when we're trying to learn. When you're afraid, it's just incredibly hard to learn. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about when you think about your own teaching, your own classroom, when is fear really high for kids and when is it at its lowest?
Yeah.
Because I imagine you see a range.
Yeah, I'm so glad you called attention to that issue, and, like, I feel like that's something, it's very, like, palpable, like, in the energy and, like, on folks' faces and in just the space of the interaction. I mean, I think, like, in those moments where, like, like, a student feels like there's something I'm supposed to be doing or saying and I don't know what it is, and I'm not, like, that, you just see this, like, deer in the headlights, and then
Yeah.
the shutting down, and, like, that it's filling. I feel like you can, like, see that that is what is now filling their mind.
Yeah. You
Like,
can't think about anything
can't
else.
think about anything else. That has taken up all available cognitive and emotional energy of,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, no, like, did I get it right? There's something else here." Um, so I think yeah, those moments really, I think it's very heightened, and what dissipates it? I feel like one thing that really dissipates it is, like, another student vocalizing uncertainty. Like, another student being like, "I just don't know." Like, "I'm not sure." Like, that feels very powerful, and I think that is such a gift. Like, I was trying to say, like, it's such a gift. It's such a gift to all of us that you were just like, "I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on here. I have no idea what you meant by that. I just don't know." Or like, I'm feeling really confused. Like, I'm just not sure. And so I think that changes the energy. It gives permission for the not
Yeah.
knowing. It gives permission for the uncertainty. It makes it so much more of a collective endeavor. I just think the collective, like learning as
Ooh,
a collective endeavor, as opposed to learning as this like individual. You see the fear when it's like somehow that person feels that the spotlight is like on them,
yeah.
and when it's somehow just more like this thing we're trying to figure out together, that makes
Mm.
it feel different. See, do you feel like you see the fear at the college level? The fear of being right and wrong, like the fear of being wrong?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think so many of our students are coming from places, prior educational experiences, where right and wrong have been sort of deeply valorized. Like, that is the ambition. And so there's this sense that not only is there a right and there's a wrong, that I know it.
Yeah.
And they are trying to demonstrate their competence with it, especially at a place, I think, like Harvard, which has a particular reputation and a set of assumptions about it. And it makes it harder to say, I don't know. You
Yeah.
assume that everyone else knows, and somehow you are the only one that doesn't know. Like, how?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And so I really appreciate you naming, just normalizing, naming, as you know, as a teacher, as an instructor, as a faculty member, that is part of your responsibility. I think that's part of your sacred responsibility to hold space for the whole self and all the partialness of thinking and work, but also to invite everyone in
Yeah.
to that. I love how you talked about it as it's like communal activity. It's something we do together. It's hard for me to think of things that aren't better when we're supporting each other through them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my hot take for today.
What do you do in the classroom? Like in moments in the classroom where you see that like what is going on in interaction with a student is that they're trying to like perform knowledge or knowing, or that they're feeling worried about being wrong. Like what do you do in those moments?
Mm. So one of my refrains is that relationships are at the heart of all
Yeah.
learning situations. And in most of my classes, they're very large. And I do this multi-scale structure where I'm part of the instructional team, but I have a very like close, wonderful team of co-facilitators that I deeply trust, who have been my own students, who understand these core values, these aspirations that we're trying to document in this book. And so even though the classes are large, every student has someone, a member of the teaching team that they can go to. So a lot of that work happens with the teaching, what they call them at Harvard, teaching fellows,
Mhm.
um, where it's someone they are regularly in conversation with. This is someone who's responding to their work each week, and will be able to sense where maybe that doubt is creeping in, or maybe someone's not showing up, maybe literally to class, or maybe metaphorically, that like, oh, like you seem off today. What's going on? And some of that is part of the process. We just want to make sure it's not going on too long.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want
Yeah.
it to be incapacitating. We don't want it to get to a point where you're
Yes.
not making progress.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, eh, having responsibility for yourself and for your ideas, not always the best feeling all of the time,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I think, as in the chapter, which is an excerpt I love, but it was not the one I selected, it was like,
Yeah.
to choose is to risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the excitement, but
Yeah.
that can also lead to some emotional complexity. So we want to make sure that it's a space where students can name that and feel
Yeah.
okay with, you know what, I had a really kind of crappy week with my project this week, or oh,
Yeah.
I tried to like build this thing. It was like a total fiasco. And so,
Yeah.
okay, like let's acknowledge that. Can we muster the energy to celebrate it? Maybe it's too soon to celebrate it, but maybe in a couple of weeks we'll be able to appreciate
Yeah.
it for what it offered us. But we just want to make sure that we're always attending to the complexity of it and not trying to make everything like, oh, everything has to feel good all the time and everything is
Yeah.
easy all the time, because that's
Yeah.
just not the case.
Yeah. No, I think acknowledging that part of it, and the way that Holt acknowledges that it can be like a difficult and destabilizing experience for students. They
Yeah.
are not always going to welcome it, and that's
No.
like okay. Like that's yeah, to not to be
Right?
like closed off or like
Yeah.
to be responded to. You said that was, even though you find that excerpt very powerful, that was not the excerpt you
Yes.
selected. Do you want to tell us what the excerpt that you selected is?
Well, I think it connects in a
Yeah.
lovely way to what you were just talking about and some of what we've been talking about. So this is from page 38. Students who haven't had opportunities to practice making choices for themselves may understandably lack the necessary self-confidence and self-trust to take a leap into the intellectual unknown, to pursue their interests, questions, and curiosities. And the thing I wanted to lean into about that sentence is the opportunities to practice aspect of it, because what I think is so beautiful, and we write a little bit about in this chapter, is the way that Benjamin scaffolds those opportunities for kids. And I think it's an interesting contrast to Holt himself. So, in part of Freedom and Beyond, he talks about teaching a class about self directed learning at the
Mm.
Harvard Graduate School of Education, and how there is a like near revolt in the class because he says, here are recommended readings, but you don't have to do them. We're going to have class at this time, but you don't have to come. And students were just so annoyed. They were
Yeah.
so annoyed about
Yeah.
having the responsibility to make choices for themselves and to go from very highly regimented experiences, experiences where there are a lot of expectations around what to do, what quality looks like, how you show up in spaces, to, hey, you do you, was just too jarring for these
Yeah.
wonderful human beings. And what I so deeply appreciate about Benjamin and his practice is like he was so intentional about inviting students into choices, not that he didn't struggle, right?
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
was still getting questions from students, and part of it is a willingness to stick with it as a teacher, and so I also appreciate that. But I think there's something really powerful about the ways in which structure can be used to support choice and to support agency. And as you know, this has been a
Yeah.
long time obsession of mine. And
Yeah.
so that's what I was thinking about, is sort of what
Yeah.
can we do in our
Yeah.
teaching practice to make it as easy as possible for students to make choices
Yeah.
over time with greater confidence.
And I think that was something Benjamin noted. I can't remember if it's in this specific essay where he talked about growth over, like, he's someone who sees students multiple years because he's like an elementary
Yeah.
STEAM educator, and he talks about seeing them grow in their ability to manage, like, having that kind of responsibility, dealing with those forms of intellectual uncertainty, and the
Yeah.
ways in which the beautiful language that he uses with folks of just like, no, really, like, really, you can make this thing that you're interested in. I really mean it. Um, seeing the impact of that as students like get more comfortable with that over time. Feel like as we're talking about sort of like the fear, that fear of being wrong, but like part of what is engendering the fear of being wrong is the validation for being right. Like when you're talking about students like coming to you, often being students who have had a lot of very validating experiences of being right in their academic career moving forward. And like, because even if we're saying it's okay to be wrong, if we continue to like if being right continues to accrue so much validation, like that's showing that it's bad to be wrong, even if we're saying like it's okay to be wrong, like that. And I think that's sometimes like what's going on for students. and I think that's just like another thing that I want to think more about, of just like how, especially when like all of it is structured about the like being right and getting to the right answer, like how can we affirm students, like really affirm them and affirm their ideas, because that's so important and that's necessary for learning. How can we affirm them and affirm their ideas without it functioning as validation of the like performance of knowing, as validation of like having gotten the right answer, then thus not had the bad thing of not knowing the right answer. Um, but maybe that's just something I want to continue to think about.
Beautiful. Is there anything else we want to talk about for week 2?
I don't think so. Yeah, I feel like these ones are ideas. They're very big, and I think I was conscious during our conversation of the ways in which the things we were talking about like really intersected with like a lot of other like themes that reverberate throughout, the Dewey
Yeah.
quote about accumulation of knowledge, like all these different things. So I think just like this idea that Holt is naming, that Benjamin is showing us a way out of this devastating bind, those are just big, and I feel like is an ongoing project to think about how
Life's
those
work.
inform what we're doing. Yeah, this one
Yeah.
feels very
Yeah.
like it's very-
Well, thank you once again. I think that's it for week 2 of the Start with Questions book club. As always, we invite friends to read the story, join us in Substack comments, and we'll see you next week.
yeah. Thank you. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you all so much.